swear I wasn't dreaming and I wasn't drunk. I know what I saw, and I know how scared I was after. I hate sleeping alone because of it. I'm Emmy. I was living alone. I worked as a coordinator. The office was in this older brick building near a grocery store. I'd wake up around 6:30, usually late because I've never been good at mornings, and sit there pretending I liked my job more than I actually did. My apartment was only like 10 minutes away, so I'd usually leave late anyway, because technically I still got there on time. It was one of those houses converted into apartments. Mine was on the second floor. The area around it was kind of weird. There were these long roads with woods behind neighborhoods, and if you drove far enough, you'd randomly come across abandoned stuff. Old churches, broken barns, tiny family cemeteries that nobody took care of anymore. Pennsylvania has a lot of that. Places where you can tell there used to be people there years ago, and then everybody just slowly left. I became friends with this girl Hannah from work. She was one of the hygienists there. Loud personality, talked constantly, always chewing gum. She was one of those people who never seemed nervous about anything. If a patient yelled at us, she'd laugh after. If somebody creepy came into the office, she'd still joke around with them. She liked exploring weird places too, which I normally avoided because I scare easy. But sometimes after work, we'd drive around because neither of us wanted to go home yet, especially during summer when it stayed light outside longer. The office air conditioning broke that afternoon, and everybody was irritated. I had a headache almost the whole day from the heat and from staring at a computer screen. Around 5, Hannah asked if I wanted to get food and drive around for a while because she didn't want to go home to her apartment yet. Her boyfriend had apparently pissed her off again. We got burgers from this place near the highway and drove around eating fries in her car. This abandoned cemetery. She found it once while driving. Half the graves were from the 1800s and the church itself burned down years before. I said no because cemeteries freak me out. I just hate them. Always have. They make me feel weird and sad. But she kept saying it wasn't scary, it was just interesting, and she wanted to show me this broken angel statue there because she thought it looked creepy. I gave in because I didn't think anything would happen. We weren't sneaking into some building or anything dangerous. It was still light out too, like evening light where everything starts turning orange. The road there got more isolated the farther we drove. There were stretches where you wouldn't see another car for several minutes. We turned onto this cracked, narrow road that looked barely maintained. The cemetery was farther back. You couldn't even really see it from the road because trees covered most of it. We parked near this broken fence thing and walked in through tall grass. Immediately I wanted to leave. It just felt off there. Some gravestones were leaning sideways. Some looked smashed. Parts of the ground dipped weirdly. Hannah kept walking ahead of me, pointing stuff out while I stayed closer to the path. I remember there were bugs everywhere because of the heat, gnats flying around our faces. I saw somebody standing farther back between the graves. It was just another person walking around. The cemetery wasn't fenced completely, so technically anybody could wander in there. The woman looked older. She was standing weirdly still, like not moving. I remember slowing down and asking Hannah quietly if she knew somebody else came there sometimes. She kept talking for a second because she didn't hear me at first. Then she looked over where I pointed and said, "Where?" That made my stomach drop because the woman was still there. Plain as day. I said, "Right there." And Hannah laughed like she thought I was joking. She kept squinting toward the area but then shrugged and said she didn't see anybody. I thought she was messing with me. The woman started moving, slowly shifting sideways between graves. The thing is, it was her face. I couldn't fully make it out because of distance, but something looked really wrong around her mouth and eyes, like her face looked stretched and swollen in places. I asked Hannah again if she seriously couldn't see her, and she said no, there was nobody there. The woman turned her head and I could see her staring at me. I started walking faster. Hannah followed me asking what my problem was. I kept looking back expecting to see the woman gone, but every time I looked, she seemed closer, somehow, even though I never actually saw her walking toward us. That's the part that bothers me. I never saw movement that made sense. Her position would just change. When we got back near the car, Hannah stopped. She asked if I was okay, and I told her I probably just had a headache. I didn't want to keep talking about it. Hannah tried changing the subject a bunch of times, but I barely listened. I just wanted to get home. Nothing happened the rest of the evening. Around midnight, I went to bed. I remember struggling to sleep because my apartment felt unusually warm, even with the fan on. I kept tossing around and waking up halfway. Then at some point, I started feeling this weird sensation on my legs, like somebody lightly brushing their fingers against them through the blanket. I thought it was just the blanket shifting when I moved. Tiny little touches. I checked for bugs because Pennsylvania apartments always get spiders or something eventually. I turned on my phone flashlight and checked the bed. Nothing. After that, I tried sleeping again, but I couldn't. I get that same feeling again, this light dragging touch against my ankle. I kept jerking awake. Eventually, I got so irritated I sat up and turned my bedside lamp on. The room looked fine, but everything felt strange. I remember rubbing my face because I thought I was half dreaming. Then, I felt something touch the side of my foot through the blanket again. I pulled my legs back and stood up. Maybe nerves twitching? I stepped around the edge of the bed toward the doorway because I really wanted all the lights on in the apartment. And right when I looked down near the foot of my bed, I saw her. On the floor. I almost stepped directly onto her hand. I screamed. My brain didn't process it. The position she was in made no sense. She was laying flat on the floor beside the bed, but twisted sideways, folded weirdly, and her face was tilted up toward me. Eyes looked too wide open. I jumped backward. I thought somebody had broken into my apartment. My entire body went cold. She just stayed there staring up at me from the floor. I know this sounds like some movie stuff. Her head turned more and one of her hands dragged across the carpet toward me. And I ran straight out of the bedroom. I was convinced she was coming after me. My apartment layout was small, luckily. Bedroom connected to a short hallway, bathroom on the left, kitchen and living room straight ahead. I ran into the living room and turned every light on while shaking. I remember crying already at that point. I'm not usually dramatic like that, but I thought there was a person inside my apartment. I almost called 911. The only reason I didn't was because I thought I'd had some kind of sleep paralysis thing standing up. Or maybe I was half asleep and imagined it. I remembered almost stepping on her fingers. You don't imagine details like that. I stood in the kitchen, staring down the hallway toward my room. Nothing moved. Eventually, I forced myself to check because I couldn't just stand there all night. When I got back to the bedroom doorway, nobody on the floor, nothing beside the bed. I checked literally everywhere, even though my apartment was tiny and there weren't many hiding places. There was nobody there. It had been a real person, at least that would make sense. I could explain that. Instead, I just stood there sweating and staring at the empty carpet where I knew I saw her. Around 4 a.m, I called my mom because I genuinely didn't know what else to do. At first I lied and said I just had a panic attack, but she knew something was wrong. So eventually I told her most of it. My mom is religious in a very normal older woman way, keeps little crosses in rooms, that kind of thing. She asked if anything weird like this had ever happened to me before. I said no. Then she asked if I could come stay with them for a couple days. I left right after sunrise. I was moving fast the whole time because I kept feeling like somebody was behind me. Even walking down the apartment stairs felt horrible. I locked my apartment door and ran to my car. The drive to my parents' house was about an hour and 15 minutes. They lived farther outside town in a quieter area with more woods and farms. Normally I liked driving there because it relaxed me, but that morning I was checking my mirrors. What really messed with me was how exhausted I felt mixed with adrenaline. My body felt heavy and shaky at the same time. At one point, I pulled over because I started crying again for no reason. I remember thinking, if I tell people this, they're going to think I lost my mind. I realized my eyes were bloodshot and I looked pale as hell. My dad was less emotional about it, obviously. He mostly thought I'd had a vivid nightmare mixed with stress. I didn't dream about anything weird from what I remember. My dad eventually got irritated with the conversation because he thought my mom was feeding into my fear too much. He said somebody homeless was wandering around the cemetery, and I carried the image into a nightmare. Which again, I understand logically, but he didn't see what I saw on my floor. The next morning, my mom wanted all of us to go to church. She thought it would make me feel calmer. I agreed, because I would have tried anything at that point. Church actually did help a little, mostly because it felt good. I remember sitting there trying really hard to convince myself I imagined everything from stress and lack of sleep. I grew up in Midwest. I was 24 and living with my girlfriend in this rental house. The road we lived off of was narrow and curved through woods and open fields for miles. There weren't many streetlights, and certain stretches got so dark your headlights just disappeared into blackness ahead of you. My uncle used to say there was an old woman who walked along the shoulder at night asking for rides. I never believed any of it. I mean, I liked scary stuff and everything, but I always figured it was people freaking themselves out. Even after this happened, I still don't know what I believe. I worked at a warehouse about 20 minutes away, night shifts. It sucked pretty bad, but the pay was all right for the area. My girlfriend Jay worked mornings. We had been together almost 3 years by then, and things were kind of rough around that time. Money mostly. I was working too much, and she thought I was checked out all the time. Looking back, she wasn't wrong. The night this happened, Jay and I got into an argument after dinner over something involving her sister borrowing money again. It turned into one of those fights where halfway through you're not even arguing about the original thing anymore. We were both pissed off already from work and just taking it out on each other. I remember she finally said, "Just leave for a while because I seriously can't listen to you anymore tonight." So I left. I didn't even take my car because I didn't trust myself to drive angry, and I only planned to cool off for a little bit. I threw on a hoodie and my heavier jacket and started walking toward town. I used to do that when stressed out. The road was quiet enough that you could walk right down the middle when no cars were coming. I think it was around midnight by then. I remember passing this old mailbox somebody had smashed with a bat because the post was split sideways. There was frost building on the grass already, and you could see your breath pretty thick under the few streetlights there were. My headphones had died not long after I left the house. All I could hear was the wind and my own footsteps. I ended up turning onto this older side road instead of heading all the way into town. Mostly because I didn't feel like seeing people. The side road looped around through woods and eventually connected back near our place anyway. Hardly anybody used it at night because it wasn't the fastest route anywhere. There were long stretches where trees sat real close to the pavement, like branches hanging over both sides almost touching above you. Some sections had old fencing disappearing into the woods. A few abandoned houses too. You could barely see them from the road, but sometimes during the day you'd notice broken windows through the trees. I remember thinking about the argument while I walked and kind of calming down. I even thought I should turn around and apologize because it was stupid. It felt like standing in a room where somebody suddenly muted everything. I stopped walking because I noticed it so strongly. That's when I saw them the first time. They were standing back near the tree line 30 feet ahead of me. I could only make out shapes at first. An older man. Tall, and he was holding something against his chest. It looked like a child. I remember immediately thinking somebody's car must have broken down nearby, or maybe a grandfather carrying a sleeping kid from somewhere. That was my first thought. Nothing paranormal or weird, just confusion over why they were standing so still in the dark. I slowed down and squinted, trying to see better. The old man was facing sideways. I could make out pale skin and what looked like a long gray coat. The kid looked small, couldn't have been older than 5 or 6. Their head was resting against his shoulder, weirdly limp. Neither of them moved at all. I remember calling out, "You guys all right?" My stomach started feeling weird for some reason. I don't know why, because technically nothing had happened yet, but every instinct in me suddenly wanted to stop moving. When I got 20 feet closer, the old man turned his head toward me. I swear to God I can still picture it perfectly, pale and flat. The eyes looked too dark from where I stood. and the kid still wasn't moving. Then both of them disappeared, like somebody cut them out of the picture. There was nothing except trees behind them. I felt my knees go weak for a second. I thought I lost sight of them in the dark, or they stepped back into deeper woods where I couldn't see. But I knew they hadn't. Trust me. I backed up a couple steps and pulled my phone out for the flashlight because suddenly I felt terrified. The flashlight barely lit anything beyond the edge of the road because the woods were thick there. No people. While I was standing there trying to calm down, I heard something behind me. I turned around and they were there again, on the opposite side of the road. I don't even know how to explain the fear that hit me because it wasn't normal fear. It felt physical, like ice water dumping through my chest. The old man was standing half behind a tree staring at me now, still holding the child. I could see more of the kid this time too. Small arms hanging down, bare feet, I think barefoot anyway. And the old man had this expressionless face like he wasn't even human. I screamed something at him. I don't remember what. And again, they vanished, instantly gone. At that point, I started running. Every part of me knew something was deeply wrong. I ran back the direction I came from as fast as I could. I kept looking over my shoulder while running, and twice I thought I saw them again between the trees pacing alongside me, like appearing in pieces through gaps in the woods. The old man, the child hanging against him. Every time I focused directly on them, they'd disappear again. I remember my breathing got so bad. I'm not exactly athletic, and panic hit me hard enough I thought I might pass out. The road suddenly felt endless too, like I wasn't getting anywhere. I jerked around so fast, looking into the trees. Like 15 feet inside the woods, I saw the child standing alone this time, staring at me. The old man wasn't with them anymore. I stopped dead in the road. My brain couldn't process what I was looking at. The kid looked soaking wet, clothes hanging strange, head sideways. Then the old man stepped out slowly behind the child, and this time they didn't disappear right away. The child was just standing motionless with their head tilted, and the old man behind them had one hand on the kid's shoulder. I remember seeing how white his fingers looked against the dark trees, like pale in a sick way. I started running again. I went full panic mode at that point. I remember my vision getting blurry around the edges because I was breathing too hard. Every few seconds I looked sideways into the woods while running, and half the time I thought I saw movement between trees. The road curved after a while near this old field, with a collapsed thing way back from the shoulder. During the daytime, people parked there to drink or whatever because nobody really checked on it anymore. I remember seeing headlights in the distance, finally. It meant another person was nearby. I waved my arms, trying to get the truck to stop. It slowed down. Some older guy I vaguely recognized from town was driving. The second he rolled the window down, he goes, "Jesus Christ, what happened to you?" I was breathing so hard, all I managed was something about people in the woods. He asked if somebody chased me or if I got jumped. I could tell he thought I was drunk or high, which fair enough because I sounded crazy. But he still offered me a ride since it was freezing out. He told me people avoided that stretch late at night for a reason. Said there'd been accidents there over the years, and weird reports going back forever. Said his dad used to talk about it when he was younger. By the time I got inside, my hands were shaking. Jay was still awake, sitting on the couch watching TV. The second she saw me, she got pissed, because apparently I looked insane, could barely talk right. She thought I got into a fight. The thing about Jay was she believed in paranormal stuff way more than I did. Her grandma used to tell all these stories about haunted roads and spirits. I ended up going to work, and worst shift of my life. Every dark hallway started bothering me, especially windows. I kept feeling like if I looked outside, suddenly I'd see them standing near the trees across the road. I used to live in this really bad area near Tacoma for about 1.5 years, close to 2 years. I was 26 at the time. I wasn't making terrible money, but definitely not enough to afford anything nice around Seattle. And I didn't want to live with roommates because I had already done that for years and got tired of strangers eating my food and fighting over thermostat settings like children. The place I rented was this one-floor house behind another property. Not a guest house, because it had its own address technically, but it kind of felt like one. The landlord owned the bigger house in front, and then my place sat farther back near this patch of trees and blackberry bushes. There was an alley behind everything too. The area itself had a lot of break-ins and weird stuff. I remember when I first moved there, the landlord casually told me not to leave anything visible in my car because people checked handles every night. I should have taken that more seriously. The house was old, like built in 40s. There were these long, narrow windows near the ceiling in the living room, and during winter wind would whistle through them. I had one of those little portable heaters I carried room to room. The bedroom sat at the back facing the trees, and that's important because those trees always bothered me. They were just dense and close to the house, and at night when the wind moved through them, it sounded like whispering. I lived alone, except for my cat, Pudding. If I picked him up, he'd make this irritated noise like I ruined his entire day. I'd finish work around 5 or 6, lock both doors automatically because everybody did there, and spend the rest of the night doing extra work. I didn't really have friends nearby yet. Most of my old friends lived back in Oregon still, so I stayed inside a lot. There were always noises around that neighborhood, people yelling outside at night, random engines revving, dogs barking non-stop. Once I woke up at like 3 in the morning because somebody was trying car doors up and down the street. You could literally hear the handles clacking one after another. Another time, cops blocked off part of the road because somebody got stabbed outside a gas station, half a mile away. It wasn't a good area. Everybody knew it wasn't a good area. Even delivery drivers acted weird when they dropped stuff off there. That day I got home around 6:30 after stopping at this store near Pacific Avenue. We were behind on claims, and my manager kept sending passive-aggressive emails about productivity numbers. I was already irritated. I remember I locked the front door. I heated up soup, fed the cat, changed clothes. Then around 8, I heard footsteps outside. I didn't even really react because people walked through the alley. It sounded closer than the alley, like right outside the side of the house near the kitchen. I listened. The footsteps stopped. I checked the front window, but didn't see anyone. About 15 minutes later, I heard somebody walking carefully. It was definitely close to the house, not the alley. I think when you live somewhere sketchy for a while, you start trying to act tougher than you are. You normalize things. I told myself if somebody was really outside trying to break in, they wouldn't just be casually walking around. So after sitting there another minute, I unlocked the front door and stepped onto the porch. Nobody. I walked around the side of the house checking everything. I checked the gate by the alley and it was shut. I went back inside. Pudding was sitting in the hallway staring toward the kitchen, and I remember seeing that because normally he ignored everything. His ears were tilted back. Around 9, I went into my bedroom with my laptop because I still had work stuff to finish. My bed sat against the wall under the window, and from there you could see the trees out back through the blinds. I worked for an hour, and I heard this sound. I can't describe it. Like a deep sudden inhale, a gasp. Right outside the window, I jerked my head toward the blinds. I remember whispering, "What the hell?" to myself. Then I heard nothing again. At that point, I got scared for the first time all night. After a minute, I got up and opened my bedroom door. I think I wanted to check the kitchen and make sure the back door was still locked. I walked down the hallway and noticed the kitchen light was off. I was positive I left it on earlier. I looked at the kitchen door. It was cracked open. I knew I locked that door. And even if somehow I forgot, the wind couldn't have opened it because it opened inward and the latch stuck hard. I slowly backed away from the kitchen without taking my eyes off the door. I didn't go close enough to touch it. I felt completely certain somebody was still in the house with me. Then from somewhere near the living room, I heard this tiny sound. I ran back into my bedroom and slammed the door. I called 911. I crawled toward the window beside my bed and carefully pulled one blind slat down with my finger. I noticed what looked like part of a face between the trees. A man standing still, staring directly at my bedroom window. I could barely make out one eye. That's the thing. Just the fact he wasn't hiding after I saw him. He was standing there watching. The police came in through the front door with guns drawn. The kitchen door was wide open. A couple minutes later, they asked me if I could confirm none of the footprints outside belonged to me. Then asked if I'd noticed items moved around recently. Missing food, windows cracked open, anything strange over the last few weeks. Immediately, little things started popping into my head. They found evidence suggesting somebody may have been entering the house before tonight. There was this tiny little crawl space access near the washer and dryer, basically just enough room for pipes and insulation under the house. I never opened it because it smelled awful down there, and the landlord told me there were rats. I absolutely did not want to be anywhere near them when they opened it. I'll never forget the expression on the officer's face when they pulled the crawlspace door open. Disgust. Immediately stepped backward, covering noses. They asked if I'd noticed clothes missing recently. I wasn't sure anymore. They found signs somebody had been staying down there, and found a small flashlight and a folding knife. Inside my house, under my bedroom floor basically. I started crying in front of everybody. I think the reality finally hit me. Somebody had probably been inside that house before I even got home from work. Multiple times. Maybe for days or weeks. I kept thinking about all the nights I walked around barefoot or showered or slept there completely alone while some stranger maybe listened from underneath the floor. The officers tried calming me down, but I barely remember parts of that night after that point. They told me cases like this happen more than people realized, especially in areas with abandoned properties and drug activity. Sometimes people broke into homes just to steal stuff. Sometimes they watched houses for a while first. The police searched the woods and alley behind the property for hours, but never found the guy. They did find more cigarette butts near the trees though, and footprints leading behind neighboring fences. Whoever it was probably knew the area well, because they disappeared fast once patrol cars arrived. I didn't sleep there again after that night. Not even once. I stayed at a hotel first, and with friends until I could break the lease. Based on the amount of trash and ash down there, they believed the person had probably been entering the house for a while. Not just one night. Weeks. Possibly longer. I asked why the guy never attacked me or stole much, and they said sometimes these people become obsessed with the feeling of secretly living around somebody without being noticed. Like they enjoy getting away with it.